La presentación, la inauguración oficial del Congreso la abre don John Bruton, ex-primer ministro de Irlanda. Mr. Bruton, whenever you want, please.
Presidents, ministers, ambassadors, I'm delighted to have been given the privilege of opening this conference. I'm delighted in particular to share a platform with President Uribe, a man whom I have greatly admired, a man of tremendous courage and also of humility, a truly great political leader in his country. I'm equally honoured to share the platform with President Esperanza Aguirre, who has proven to be, in her leadership of the community of Madrid, a very large population, the most dynamic part of Spain, to be a person who in her political life exemplifies the theme of this conference, which is innovation. I think it is important to analyse for a moment what innovation means. Innovation is not solely about technology. It's not a technical matter. Innovation is first and foremost a state of mind. It is a way of looking at the world. It is a willingness always to think of new ways of doing things, of better ways of doing things. And to do that, no matter how well your business is going, the great risk is when a business is going well that it stops innovating. Sometimes a business gets into difficulty because it failed to innovate in time. Sometimes also, as people get older, they think they no longer need to innovate in their lives. But the truth of the matter is that all of our societies here in Western Europe, and indeed also in North America, in Japan, and all of the developed world, we are all, as societies, getting progressively older. The average age is rising. The number of people who believe that they ought to retire, although perhaps they should not, are becoming more and more numerous. We've got to instill into all of these people a willingness to innovate in their lives, to do new things, to think of setting up a business, to think of changing the way they live their lives so that they can be more productive. But as I think President Aguirre has exemplified, all of this must start in the schools. And I think the reform of education here in this community of Madrid is one of the outstanding achievements of her administration. The fact that she has been willing to introduce into the school system a situation where people are being taught, not through Spanish, but taught through English, many of the subjects that they need to learn. That is a truly innovative way of looking at the world and gives this community of Madrid the possibility of being the great international city it has the strength and the power to be in the future. I will, if I may, and I hope I do not speak for too long, say a word or two about my own country, about Ireland. I will talk, if I may, about Ireland's growth story, Ireland's bubble story, Ireland's burst story, and Ireland's recovery story. We grew in the 1990s for a number of reasons. We had laid a very good foundation of a low corporate tax for businesses, which dated back to 1956, before we even joined the European Union. Before the European Union was created, Ireland had a low corporate tax system. And that attracted more foreign investment to Ireland than to any other country in the world apart from Hong Kong. Out of that, we were able to grow very rapidly in the 1990s, partly because we were recovering from a period of stagnation, and partly because a lot of children who were dependents in the 1980s became young adults in the 1990s, and our workforce literally doubled in the space of 10 years. So that enabled us to grow very rapidly in the 1990s. That continued to the middle of this decade, to 2005 or so, when unfortunately there occurred a bubble in the housing industry, thanks to negative interest rates, and we reached a point where construction was 13% of our economy, whereas it should normally only be about 6%. And of course, when that construction stopped, when the credit ceased to flow, there was a crash. The bubble burst in our economy, and we had a reduction in the number of people employed in Ireland. The number of people employed fell by over 300,000 in the space of a few years, and unemployment rose from 4% to 14%. Youth unemployment is now 28% in Ireland. Not as high as in Spain, but one of the highest in Europe too. We're now recovering from that. We are recovering from it by improving our competitiveness. The Irish government succeeded in persuading all public servants in Ireland to accept an average pay cut of 17%, voluntarily agreed to. Labour costs in Ireland have fallen substantially in the private sector as well as a result of these efforts. The tax base has been broadened. Budget adjustments have been introduced, amounting to 16% of GDP, narrowing the gap between spending and revenue by 16% of gross domestic product. And we have, like the government in Spain, adopted a new policy on banking, which is recapitalising our banks and putting them on a sound footing. And we're able now to build on having, and this is something we've had for a number of years, one of the most modern industrial bases in the world. Pharmaceuticals, medical devices, software, financial services. A modern industrial base gives us the capacity to recover now from the difficulties which we have encountered. I'd like to bring my remarks to a close, as I'm looking forward to hearing many of the other speakers, by making basically three final points. First of all, it is important to recognise that the economic crisis we face is, and this is not a cliche, it is truly a political opportunity, because people are willing to accept changes during a crisis that they would not be prepared to accept otherwise. You will get consent to change in a crisis. You'll get people willing to make sacrifices for the community and for their country during a crisis that they would not make otherwise. And it is vital that that opportunity be used to the full. And if I were to offer political advice, and I have been a politician for most of my life, I would say, announce all the bad news early. Don't leave anything to the 2 or 3 years before the election. Do as much as you can in the immediate aftermath of the election. Even if you don't do everything, at least announce everything so that people know what's coming in front of them and they have a sense that they can plan their future. The other point I would make, second point I would make is make it easy for people to set up a new business. Don't have a lot of unnecessary red tape in the way of somebody that's trying to set up a new business. And finally, and most importantly, adopt the theme of this conference. Encourage people, whatever their age, to think innovatively, to recognise that to survive in this highly competitive world, we all, no matter how old or young we are, we must be willing constantly to change the way we do things so as to do them better. Thank you.